You're barren. The words echoed in Zainab's memory as the Rolls-Royce pulled up to the Plaza Hotel, the same words Michael had thrown at her like a curse, like a final judgment on their 5-year marriage. The same words that had shattered her, made her question her worth, her body, her future. But that was 6 months ago. Today, Michael was getting married. And he'd sent her an invitation, probably expecting her to show up broken and ashamed, giving him one final chance to feel superior. Zainab smiled, adjusting her emerald silk gown that draped perfectly over her hourglass figure. Beside her was Kang Dae-young, the feared Korean Mafia boss, looking dangerous as sin. And in her arms were 2 beautiful babies with skin like honey and dark, knowing eyes. Behind them, 4 bodyguards flanked their path. The ballroom doors opened. Every head turned. And Michael Whitfield's face went white as he saw the woman he'd called Barren walking toward him and carrying another man's babies. If you're new here, welcome to Stories That Don't Hold Back, where love is messy, revenge is sweet, and strong women always win. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because you won't want to miss what happens next. Now, let's dive into Zainab's story, a story of betrayal, power, and the most dangerous love of all. New York City had a way of making dreams look easy and breaking hearts look elegant. For Zainab Ortega, the city had been both promise and prison. She still remembered the day she'd married Michael Whitfield 5 years ago, a spring afternoon in the Hamptons, surrounded by his family's old money and older expectations. Zainab, the daughter of Nigerian immigrants who'd built their modest life from nothing, had felt like Cinderella stepping into a fairy tale. Michael had been charming then, attentive, whispering promises about building an empire together, about family, about forever. "You're going to give me beautiful babies, Zai," he'd said on their wedding night, kissing her forehead. "Strong sons to carry on the Whitfield name." She'd believed him. God, she'd believed every word. The penthouse apartment on the Upper East Side became her gilded cage. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Central Park, marble floors reflected her lonely silhouette, and designer furniture filled rooms that echoed with emptiness. Michael worked constantly, investment banking, he said, building their future. Zainab played the dutiful wife, attending charity galas in borrowed diamonds, smiling for society pages, pretending the cracks weren't showing. But they were. Month after month, year after year, her period came like clockwork. And month after month, Michael's warmth cooled by degrees. "Still nothing?" he'd ask, not even looking up from his phone. "Not yet," she'd whisper, hating how small her voice sounded. By year 3, he'd stopped asking. By year 4, he'd stopped touching her altogether. And by year 5, the man she'd married had become a stranger who looked at her with something worse than anger, disappointment. The breaking point came on a Tuesday night in October. Zainab had made dinner, jollof rice, plantains, egusi soup, all his favorites from when they'd first dated, and he'd claimed to love her culture. She'd set the table with candles, bought a new dress, practiced the words she'd say to suggest they see a fertility specialist together. Michael came home at 11, smelling of scotch and expensive perfume. "We need to talk," she'd started, her hands trembling. "Yeah, we do." He'd loosened his tie, poured himself another drink, and looked at her like she was a problem to solve. "I want a divorce, Zainab." The room tilted. "What? Don't make this harder than it needs to be. We both know this isn't working. You can't give me what I need." 5 years, Zai. 5 years of nothing. "Michael, we haven't even seen a doctor. We could get tested, find out." "I don't need a test to tell me what I already know." His voice was cold, clinical. "You're barren. My mother warned me about this, marrying outside our circle. Said there might be complications." The words hit like a physical blow. "Complications? Michael, I'm not broken. We just need to. I'm done." He set down his glass with finality. "My lawyer will contact you. You'll be taken care of financially, don't worry. But I'm marrying someone who can actually give me a family." "You're already seeing someone." It wasn't a question. She could see it in his eyes, the guilt buried under entitlement, the relief of finally saying it out loud. Victoria understands what it means to be a Whitfield wife. She comes from good stock. Strong genetics. Zainab felt something inside her crack, but she wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing her break. She stood slowly, with all the dignity her mother had taught her, channeling generations of Nigerian women who'd survived worse than heartbreak. "You never loved me," she said quietly. "You loved the idea of me. The exotic trophy. But you never respected me enough to be honest. Zainab. I'll be gone by morning." And she was. Imani's apartment in Harlem was everything the penthouse wasn't: small, warm, filled with actual life. Zainab's best friend since college had taken one look at her tear-stained face and pulled her inside without questions. "He's a fool," Imani declared, pouring wine they'd drink straight from the bottle. "A weak, insecure fool. He said I was barren." Zainab stared at her hands. "What if he's right? Girl, did Michael ever get tested? Did he ever once consider the problem might be him?" Silence. "That's what I thought." Imani grabbed her phone. "My cousin Aisha works at Mount Sinai's fertility clinic. Best in the city. You're getting tested, and you're getting answers." 3 days later, Dr. Patel delivered news that changed everything. "Ms. Ortega, your fertility panel is excellent. Hormone levels are perfect, ovarian reserve is strong. There's absolutely no medical reason you can't conceive." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Was your husband ever evaluated?" Zainab felt something cold settle in her chest. "No. He refused." "I see." Dr. Patel's expression was professional but sympathetic. "Male factor infertility accounts for 40 to 50% of cases. Without testing both partners, there's no way to determine the cause. But I can tell you with certainty, it's not you." The tears came then, hot and relieving, washing away 5 years of internalized shame. "It's not me," she whispered. "It's not you," Dr. Patel confirmed. Zainab walked out of that clinic feeling like she could breathe for the first time in years. The city looked different, still hard, still unforgiving, but full of possibility instead of prison. She got a job at a boutique art gallery in Chelsea, started going to therapy, reconnected with the parts of herself she'd buried to be Mrs. Michael Whitfield. She wore her natural hair in glorious braids and twists, dressed in colors that made her dark skin glow, laughed loud and often with Imani and other friends she'd neglected. Life was beginning again. And then she met him. The gallery opening was supposed to be routine: champagne, small talk, rich people pretending to understand art. Zainab had been explaining a piece to an elderly collector when she felt it, the weight of someone's gaze, heavy and focused. She turned and found him watching from across the room. Tall, impeccably dressed in a black suit that was cut too perfectly to be off the rack, with dark eyes that seemed to see straight through pretense. His features were striking: sharp jawline, full lips, the kind of beautiful that made people stare. Korean, she thought, though something in the way he carried himself suggested he was far more than he appeared. Their eyes met. The air changed. He approached with the fluid grace of a dancer or a fighter, she couldn't tell which. "You know your art," he said, his voice deep with an accent that softened the edges of his English. "I was listening to your explanation of the Lee piece. Insightful. Thank you, Mr. Kong. Kong Dae-young." He extended his hand. "But please, call me Dae-young." His hand was warm, his grip firm but gentle. And he held on just a second longer than necessary. "Zainab Ortega." She found herself smiling. "Are you a collector?" "Of beautiful things, yes. Art, experiences, moments that matter." His eyes never left hers. "Tell me, Zainab Ortega, do you believe in fate?" "I believe in coincidence and choice." "Interesting." He smiled, and it transformed his face from intimidating to devastating. "I'm choosing to believe tonight was fate." They talked for hours, about art, about New York, about everything and nothing. He didn't ask about her past, didn't pry into her divorce. He simply saw her. Listened like her words mattered. Made her laugh with dry observations about the pretentious collectors around them. The man in the corner has been staring at that painting for 20 minutes, Dae-young murmured. He's reading the placard over and over, trying to figure out why he should like it. Zainab bit back a laugh. Maybe he genuinely appreciates it. He's holding his champagne glass upside down. She looked. He wasn't wrong. Okay, you win. I usually do. His smile was playful, but something flickered in his eyes, something darker, more serious. Zainab, I'd like to see you again. Dinner. Somewhere we can actually talk without people pretending to understand postmodernism. She should have said no. Should have recognized the danger and how drawn she was to this stranger. But she heard herself say, yes. His smile widened. Tomorrow. I'll pick you up at 8. You don't know where I live. He pulled out his phone, handed it to her. So tell me. And she did. Dae-young picked her up in a black Mercedes with windows tinted too dark to be legal. The driver who opened her door was built like a tank and wore an earpiece. Is this necessary? Zainab asked, settling into leather seats that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Dae-young's smile was apologetic. I have security concerns. I hope it doesn't make you uncomfortable. Should I be worried? Not while you're with me. The way he said it, quiet, absolute, sent shivers down her spine. You're safe, Zainab. Always. Dinner was at a private restaurant in Tribeca, the kind of place with no sign and a waiting list measured in months. They were escorted to a secluded table where Dae-young ordered in rapid Korean, then turned his full attention to her. Tell me something true, he said. That's a dangerous question. I prefer dangerous to safe. So she told him, about her marriage, the divorce, the shame she'd carried. About Michael's words and the relief of learning the truth. She didn't know why she opened up to this man she barely knew, but something about Dae-young's quiet intensity made honesty feel safe. He's a fool, Dae-young said when she finished. Worse than a fool. Coward. He blamed you for his own inadequacy. You don't know that he was the problem. Don't I? Dae-young leaned forward. Zainab, I know men like your ex-husband. They build their worth on the backs of others, tear down anyone who threatens their fragile ego. He's weak. You're not. You barely know me. I know enough. His hand covered hers on the table, warm and steady. I know you're brilliant and kind and stronger than you realize. I know you deserve better than what he gave you. And I know, he paused, something vulnerable flickering in his eyes. I know I want to be the one who shows you that. Dae-young. I'm not a good man, Zainab. I should tell you that up front. My life is complicated. Dangerous, even. But I'm honest. And I'll never make you feel less than the extraordinary woman you are. She should have asked what he meant by dangerous. Should have recognized the warning signs, the security detail, the private restaurant, the way waiters addressed him with almost fearful respect. But she was falling, and she didn't want to stop. Before we continue, are you Team Zainab or do you think she's moving too fast? Drop your thoughts in the comments, I read every single one. And if you're loving this story of revenge and redemption, smash that like button. Trust me, you haven't seen anything yet. Now, let's get back to what happens when the Korean Mafia falls in love. 3 months into their relationship, Zainab still didn't know exactly what Dae-young did for a living. He was vague when she asked, import, export, family business, investments. She'd Googled him and found almost nothing, which in the digital age was a red flag the size of Manhattan. But she'd also found happiness. Real, deep, unexpected happiness. Dae-young was everything Michael wasn't, attentive, generous, present. He remembered how she took her coffee, surprised her with gallery tickets, listened when she talked about her dreams of curating her own exhibition someday. He was tender and passionate, making her feel desired in ways that healed wounds she hadn't known were still bleeding. His apartment, a massive loft in Soho, was minimalist and beautiful, filled with art he actually appreciated. She'd started staying over most nights, falling asleep in his arms, waking up to his kisses. "Move in with me," he murmured one morning, his fingers tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. "Dae-young, we've only been together 3 months. When you know, you know." He tilted her face toward his. "I love you, Zainab. I want you here. Always. I love you too." The words came easily, truthfully. "But I need to know who you really are. What you really do." His expression shuddered slightly. "Why?" "Because I'm falling for you, and I need to know what I'm falling into." He was silent for a long moment, then rose from the bed, pulling on pajama pants. When he turned back, his face was serious. "My family controls one of the most powerful Korean organized crime syndicates on the East Coast," he said quietly. "We handle various operations. Import, export, yes, but not the legal kind. Protection, investments, territory. My father built the organization. I inherited it when he died 5 years ago." Zainab felt her heart hammering. "You're a crime boss." "Yes. The Mafia. Korean Mafia, technically, but yes. I run one of the most feared organizations in New York." He watched her carefully. "Are you afraid?" She should be. Should run. Should call Imani and pack and never look back. But she thought about how gentle Dae-young was with her, how he'd never pressured or manipulated, how safe she felt in his arms despite, or maybe because of, the danger he represented. "What exactly do you do?" she asked. "Nothing that touches you. I keep that world separate. But I won't lie, it's violent sometimes. Dangerous always. People want what we have, want to take our territory, our power. I protect what's mine." His eyes locked on hers. "And you're mine now, Zainab. If you'll have me. I'll never put you at risk, but I can't walk away from my family, my responsibilities. I'm not asking you to." "Then what are you asking?" She stood, wrapped in the sheet, and crossed to him. "Honesty. Always. Don't hide things to protect me. Let me choose my own risks. Even if that risk is me. Especially if it's you." He kissed her then, deep and claiming, and she felt something shift between them, a new level of trust, of commitment. "Move in with me," he said again against her lips. This time, she said yes. The nausea started 6 weeks after she moved in. At first, Zainab dismissed it as stress, adjusting to living with Dae-young, the lingering divorce proceedings with Michael, the constant low-level anxiety of knowing her boyfriend was a crime lord. But when she missed her period, then a second one, terror and hope warred in her chest. "I need to see Dr. Patel," she told Imani over emergency coffee. "You think you're pregnant?" "I don't know. Maybe." "God, Imani, what if I am? Then you're about to make a mafia boss a daddy, and I am here for this drama." Despite herself, Zainab laughed. But the fear remained. What if she was pregnant? What if she wasn't? What if her body failed her again? Dr. Patel's smile told her everything before the words came. "Congratulations, Zainab. You're about 8 weeks pregnant." The world stopped. Started again. Stopped. "I'm, what? Pregnant. And based on your initial ultrasound," Dr. Patel turned the screen, pointing. "It appears you're having twins." Zainab burst into tears right there in the examination room, overwhelmed by joy and vindication and sheer disbelief. Twins. She was having twins. Michael's voice echoed, "You're barren," and she wanted to laugh and scream and dance. "It's not me," she whispered, hands on her still flat stomach. "It was never me." Dr. Patel squeezed her hand. "No, dear. It was never you." Telling Dae-young terrified her. They hadn't discussed children, hadn't planned this. And bringing babies into a crime lord's world seemed reckless at best, dangerous at worst. She found him in his office, reviewing what looked like legitimate business documents but probably weren't. We need to talk, she said, and he immediately set down his pen. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Maybe. I don't know. She took a breath. I'm pregnant. Silence. His face went completely blank. Dae-young? He stood slowly, crossing to her, his hands framing her face. Say that again. I'm pregnant. 8 weeks. Twins. Twins, he repeated, and then he was kissing her, lifting her, spinning her around with a laugh she'd never heard from him, pure, unguarded joy. Twins. Zainab, you're giving me twins. You're not upset. Upset. He set her down gently, his hands moving to her stomach. You've made me the happiest man alive. I love you. I love our babies. I'm going to protect all of you with everything I have. Dae-young, your world, it's dangerous. How can we? I'll handle it. We'll increase security, keep you safe. Nothing and no one will touch you or our children. I swear it on my life. And looking into his eyes, fierce and determined and full of love, she believed him. The pregnancy progressed beautifully. Dae-young was obsessively attentive, hiring the best doctors, insisting on constant security, reading parenting books in Korean and English. Zainab glowed, her body finally doing what Michael had claimed it couldn't. She was 6 months along, visibly and beautifully pregnant, when the invitation arrived. The envelope was cream-colored, expensive, addressed to Ms. Zainab Ortega, in calligraphy. She knew before opening it, felt it in her bones. Michael Whitfield and Victoria Hayes request the pleasure of your company at their wedding. What the hell? Imani snatched the invitation from her hands. Is he serious? He invites you to his wedding. Zainab sank onto the couch, one hand on her swollen belly where the twins were doing acrobatics. He's trying to hurt me. Show me he moved on, found someone better. Better? Girl, he found someone who'll put up with his nonsense. That's not better. Imani studied the invitation. It's in 2 weeks. Plaza Hotel. Of course it is. Pretentious ass. I'm not going. Why not? Because I'm pregnant with another man's babies, Imani. Because it's petty Ann. And he deserves to see exactly what he lost. To know you weren't the problem. Imani's eyes gleamed. Plus, imagine his face when you walk in looking like a goddess with a literal mafia boss on your arm. The drama, Zai. Think of the drama. You're a bad influence. I'm the best influence. You're going. We're getting you a dress that shows off that bump. And Dae-young's going to make sure everyone knows you've upgraded from Wall Street trash to dangerous royalty. When Zainab mentioned it to Dae-young that night, his reaction was immediate and dark. Absolutely not. He doesn't get to humiliate you. He can't. Not anymore. She took his hand, placed it on her belly where the babies kicked. I'm not the broken woman he divorced. I'm happy, loved, carrying our children. If anything, me showing up proves he was the problem all along. Zainab. I want to go, Dae-young. Not for him. For me. To close that chapter completely. He studied her face, then nodded slowly. Then we go together. But my way. With my people. He wants to play games. I'll show him what real power looks like. His smile was sharp and dangerous, and Zainab felt a thrill run through her. This was going to be interesting. The day of Michael's wedding dawned bright and clear, one of those perfect New York spring days that felt designed for new beginnings. Zainab dressed carefully in the gown Imani had helped her choose, emerald silk that draped her pregnant curves like water, elegant and regal, with a neckline that showcased the diamond necklace Dae-young had given her. You look like a queen, Dae-young said, appearing behind her in the mirror. His black suit was perfectly tailored, and he looked every inch the dangerous man he was. Are you sure about this? Completely. The drive to the plaza was quiet. Dae-young held her hand, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. In the car behind them, 4 of his most trusted men followed, insurance, he'd said, though she suspected it was also a statement. Whatever happens in there, Dae-young murmured as they pulled up, remember you're mine. I've got you. Always, she whispered back. The ballroom was exactly as she'd expected, over-the-top elegance, dripping with flowers and crystal, filled with Manhattan's elite. Conversations paused as she entered, heads turning, whispers starting. Because Zeynep Ortega had just walked into her ex-husband's wedding visibly pregnant and escorted by a man who radiated danger like cologne. She spotted Michael immediately, at the altar in his tuxedo, frozen in shock. Victoria stood beside him in an enormous white gown, her face confused. The wedding planner rushed forward. I'm sorry, but the ceremony is about to begin. Guests should be seated. We're here on the invitation of the groom, Dae-young said quietly, his voice carrying weight. I believe there's a seat reserved for Ms. Ortega. Yes, but. Then we'll take it. He guided Zeynep to the front row, the seat Michael's family traditionally reserved for honored guests. She sat gracefully despite her pregnancy, and Dae-young settled beside her, his hand possessive on her knee. The ceremony began in awkward silence. Michael kept glancing at her, his face growing paler. Victoria noticed, her smile becoming strained. And Zeynep simply sat, serene and glowing, her hand on her belly when the twins kicked. It was during the vows that everything fell apart. If anyone objects to this union, the officiant intoned, speak now or. I object. Victoria's voice rang out, shocking everyone. She turned to Michael, yanking her hand from his. I object to marrying a liar. Victoria, what are you? You told me she was barren. Victoria pointed at Zeynep. You said she couldn't have children, that it was her fault your marriage failed. But she's clearly very pregnant, Michael. So either you lied about her, or, her eyes widened. Oh my God. It was you. You were the problem. The ballroom erupted in whispers. Michael's face went red. Victoria, this isn't the time. You refused to get tested when we talked about trying for babies. You said you'd already been through this, that you knew you were fine. But you were never tested, were you? You just blamed her. Zeynep stood slowly, drawing every eye. Dae-young rose with her, a silent pillar of support. For 5 years, she said, her voice calm and clear, I believed I was broken. That my body was failing. That I was less than a woman because I couldn't give you children, Michael. You let me believe that. Encouraged it, even. Zeynep, But it was never me. Dr. Patel confirmed I was perfectly fertile. And these, she cradled her belly. These babies are proof. You were the problem, Michael. Your pride, your ego, your refusal to even consider you might be less than perfect. Who is he? Michael demanded, pointing at Dae-young. You moved on pretty fast. Probably cheated on me. Dae-young moved so quickly Michael stumbled backward. He didn't touch him, didn't need to. The threat was clear in every line of his body. Choose your next words very carefully, Dae-young said softly. Because if you disrespect the mother of my children again, this wedding will end very differently than you planned. Someone in the crowd gasped. That's Kang Dae-young. Oh my God, that's the Korean Mafia boss. The whispers became a roar. Michael looked ready to pass out. Victoria stepped away from him like he was contagious. We met after the divorce, Zeynep continued. After you threw me away like trash. And she looked at Dae-young with undisguised love. He showed me what it means to be cherished. Valued. Loved without conditions. This is insane, Michael sputtered. You can't just. We're leaving. Zeynep cut him off. Congratulations on your wedding, Michael. I hope Victoria is smart enough to demand you get tested before she wastes years of her life like I did. She turned, dignified and graceful, and Dae-young guided her down the aisle. His men flanked them, and the crowd parted like water. Just before they reached the door, Zeynep paused and looked back. Oh, and Michael. They're twins. Boys. Your mother always wanted grandsons, didn't she? Pity she'll never meet mine. The look on Michael's face, devastated, humiliated, destroyed, was almost worth the 5 years of pain. Almost. The video went viral within hours. Someone had recorded the whole confrontation, posting it on social media with hashtags that trended nationwide. Barren wife shows up at ex's wedding with Mafia boss and twins, became the story of the week, spawning think pieces about male infertility stigma, toxic masculinity, and the dangers of pride. Michael Whitfield became a laughingstock. His firm faced scrutiny. Victoria publicly broke their engagement citing fundamental dishonesty, and his mother, according to Imani's gossip network, was furious about the grandchildren that could have been. Zainab, meanwhile, was free. Any regrets? Dae-young asked that night as they lay in bed, his hand on her belly feeling the twins' kick. Not a single one. Good. He kissed her temple. Because I have something to ask you. He reached into the nightstand, pulled out a velvet box, and opened it to reveal a ring that made her breath catch, a flawless diamond surrounded by emeralds the exact color of her dress. Marry me, he said. Not because you're pregnant, not to prove anything to anyone. But because I love you, Zainab Ortega. Because you're the strongest woman I've ever met. Because I want to spend every day earning the gift of your love. Tears streamed down her face. Yes. God, yes. He slipped the ring on her finger, kissed her deeply, and she felt the last piece of her heart heal. 3 years later. The twins' third birthday party was held at their home in Westchester, a sprawling estate with enough security to rival the White House. Zainab watched from the porch as Dae-young chased their sons through the garden, their laughter bright and wild. Kian and Kai were beautiful boys, with their father's striking features and their mother's warm skin, dark curls, and mischievous spirits. They were loved fiercely, protected absolutely, and growing up knowing their worth. You look happy, Imani said, joining her with champagne, sparkling cider for Zainab, who was 4 months pregnant with their daughter. I am happy. Genuinely, completely happy. You deserve it. After everything Michael put you through. I rarely think about him anymore. And it was true. Michael Whitfield was a footnote in her story now, not the central chapter. She'd heard through the grapevine that he'd finally gotten tested and discovered he had severe fertility issues, treatable but requiring intervention he'd been too proud to consider. He'd lost Victoria, faced professional consequences, and according to social media, was living a much quieter life. Mommy. Kian ran up, dragging Dae-young behind him. Daddy says we can have 2 cakes. Daddy is spoiling you, Zainab laughed, but nodded. Okay, 2 cakes. Dae-young leaned down to kiss her, his hand finding her small bump. Happy? Deliriously. Good. He smiled that smile that still made her heart race. Because you're stuck with me forever, Mrs. Khan. I can live with that. And as she watched her family, her husband, her sons, her found sister Imani, her life rebuilt from ashes into something golden, Zainab understood a truth she'd once doubted: she was never barren. Not her body, not her heart, not her future. She was abundant. And the man who'd made her feel worthless had missed all of it. That wasn't revenge. That was justice. 6 months after the twins' birthday, Zainab gave birth to their daughter, Zara. She had her father's eyes and her mother's spirit, and Dae-young cried when he held her for the first time. 3 children, he murmured in wonder. You've given me 3 perfect children. We gave each other everything, Zainab corrected. Because that was the real story, not the humiliation of Michael at his wedding, not the viral video or the social media drama. The real story was a woman who'd been told she was broken, discovering she was whole. A man from a dark world learning to love in the light. 2 people finding each other when they needed it most and building something beautiful from the wreckage of their pasts. Zainab never did see Michael again. Heard he'd moved to the West Coast, started over, hopefully learned humility. She wished him no ill will but also no space in her thoughts. Her life was full, with her children, her husband, her work curating exhibitions for a major gallery, her friends, her joy. The gallery opened a permanent exhibition on resilience in art, and Zainab's curatorial statement began with a quote she'd written. "They called me barren. But you cannot break what was never fragile. You cannot empty what was always full. And you cannot diminish a woman who knows her worth." Dae-young had it engraved on a plaque in their garden, where the twins played and their daughter learned to walk, and their life together grew richer every day. And sometimes, when the city light sparkled beyond their windows and the children were asleep and she lay in her husband's arms, Zainab thought about the girl she'd been, the one who'd believed a cruel man's lies, who'd carried shame that was never hers to bear. She wished she could go back and tell that girl, "Hold on. The best part is coming. Your body isn't broken. Your heart isn't too much. And the man who can't see your worth will one day watch you walk away into a life so beautiful it'll hurt him to remember what he lost." But she couldn't go back. She could only move forward, grateful for every moment that had led her here. To wholeness. To love. To home. And that's Zainab's story, a reminder that the people who try to break you often reveal their own brokenness. That walking away with dignity is more powerful than any revenge. And that sometimes, the life you build after heartbreak is better than anything you lost. What did you think? Drop a comment telling me your favorite moment. Was it the wedding confrontation, the moment she found out she was pregnant, or Dae-young's proposal? And if this story spoke to you, share it with someone who needs to hear that they're not broken, they're just waiting for the right chapter. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories about strong women, complicated men, and love that defies the odds. Hit that notification bell because next week's story is going to blow your mind. Until then, remember, you're not barren of anything, not love, not success, not worth. Anyone who makes you feel less than extraordinary simply can't handle your abundance. I'll see you in the next one. Stay strong, stay blessed, and keep choosing yourself.